I find like the older the customer, the more interested they are in an analog. So something that's just
Hmm.
going to slot in like one to one for whatever it is that they typically drink. So if they like a glass of red wine with dinner, that's where we get our people being like, hey, is there even such a thing as a good non-alcoholic red wine?
So, hey everyone, welcome back to the Wine, Whiskey, and the Wheat Show. This is Ankita, and today we are talking about what's next for the drinks industry, and more specifically, what's not in the glass. Our guest is none other than Obreanna McReynolds, founder of South Pasadena's dedicated non-alcoholic bottle shop, and she's a serious force in the no and low alcohol space, and someone who's not just reacting to the trend, but she's helping define the future of mindful drinking. We have been covering a lot of podcasts around what this mindful drinking is and where the consumers are moving and what do they expect when they talk about zero proof brands. We bring this conversation as a part of USA Spirits Rating. It's one of the competition that helps brand grow in the off-premise channels of USA. And today we are diving deep into what matters and what makes a no and low alcohol product succeed on the shelf. Because in retail, especially non-alcoholic, you earn the space or you don't. So, Obriana, first of all, welcome to the show. It's really, really a pleasure to have you. We have been talking about this conversation and mindful drinking to a lot of other people, and it's really important to know your perspective coming from the bottle shop, and also this arena is very dynamic right now. It's moving. It's something it becoming a big category in coming months, I'm sure. And there's a lot of consumer base and a lot of trade which is getting involved and getting serious about this category. It's not just a trend or a vibe which is going to come and go. It's going to stay. So first of all, thank you for taking out time and getting into this conversation with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff, so it's a great way to start the week.
I'm sure. I know that we when I was jotting down questions for you, it was almost like there are 10 things that I would love to know from you and love to hear from you and see that where this drive comes from. So let's start with the obvious. What drove you to launch Burden of Proof, and what sort of gaps in the market that you think that Burden of Proof will help you solve?
Well, the interesting thing, like you pointed out, this is so much like I think we're seeing the industry move from maybe sober curiosity being a trend to like much more of a movement that's sort of here for the long term
Correct?
and a bit of a shift. But still, I think we're at the point where the industry is so new. Everybody who is
Mm,
coming into it, or many, many people who are either as a brand or like opening a shop like ours, it's all coming from like very personal reasons. So, yes, we saw market
true.
opportunities, but mainly because we were a customer who was wishing we had a place to shop. So, my husband and I met during COVID, drank a lot during COVID, came out of that, and I feel like many people realized, oh my God, I aged and but the alcohol I'm drinking went up and I like cannot maintain this.
True.
So we kind of made a concerted effort to stop drinking. And at that time we lived
Mm,
in Brooklyn and there was a shop, a non-alc bottle shop that opened there that was very just like welcoming, had everything on the shelves.
nice.
And it was really eye-opening to us that this could exist. And then when we moved to LA, there were a couple, but nothing that felt kind of targeted right at us. And we're like aging millennials.
Dedicated. Yeah.
Yeah, dedicated and like
True.
recognizing that point in life where you're kind of like starting to reevaluate, we were
Correct.
doing the dance of like going around to grocery stores and liquor stores and you find like your three options on the shelf. And we just found ourselves like wishing that this existed. Eventually, I guess realized, oh, we could open that. So, yeah, we opened Burden
Wow.
of Proof, really with the goal of showing that there are options that are like just as complex and delicious and fun to discover as anything in the alcohol space. Also, like trying to be a really inclusive place where it's not like about
Mm,
less or never having alcohol again.
true.
It's
Correct.
really just more more choices. And we wanted to create a spot that felt like, stepping into your neighborhood wine shop where it's going to be
Correct.
very personal and, you can get a human who knows you to like help
Right.
you find.
Right. Amazing. That's a really interesting to know your perspective now, even more that you move from a consumer
Yeah.
to a bottle shop, because that's a really interesting journey. You know what people are looking for, and it's not just an option, but it's a choice. This category is a
Yeah.
choice where
Yeah.
people would really love to reevaluate and see that, okay, fine, this was my drinking trait, but now I have a choice. So whenever I want to go for something which is no and low, why not? And this is something which is dedicated to it. This space is something which is inclusive. This space gives me what I'm looking for. And it's not just giving me an option, but it's making me choose what I'm here to select, which is amazing.
Yeah, totally. And there's so much fun in the discovery of it too. I think, the first thing that comes to mind is maybe like deprivation or giving something up, but it's actually like this is a
Right,
whole new
right.
category. You like
That's
drinks, you
true.
like flavor, like discover hundreds of new flavors.
True. That's really true. That's really interesting. So that brings me to a point. So let's say you move from being a consumer to somebody who would like to address consumer needs. How do you evaluate a no and low alcohol brand for, let's say, for your own bottle shop?
I mean, it's a great question and it's always slightly evolving as we're just seeing what people are responding to,
Right,
but I
right.
think taste is the number like one, two, and three thing. Because we are, a small shop and really personalized, like I want to be able to confidently recommend whatever it is we're selling to customers. So we really do taste everything and like think long and hard about whether, it's something we feel really excited about. I think what also makes a big difference when I'm thinking about something that I want to bring in that our customers will respond to is like the story of the brand or the value prop. We're
Hmm.
always looking to fill, particular spots on the shelves. We might have five
Correct.
non-alcoholic whiskeys, but like if we want to add your whiskey, like what makes it worth stocking in this space,
Right.
Is
True.
it made in a special way? Is there some interesting flavor component? Is it, we stock whiskey that's made in Kentucky, so it's a bourbon, but it's created by two women,
Right.
and that's like really rare to see in the space. So of
Hmm.
course we want to stock that. So I think like that story aspect, because
Hmm.
this is so new to consumers, it's like for them often, there's just a lot of unfamiliar things on a shelf. So if I'm able to like
Right.
help tell the story of a brand, that helps them connect with it. And if that comes through in the packaging, all the better. I
With the
think,
right point. Yeah.
yeah, that helps me do my job. And then I think like as far as price, there's definitely room for all price points. So interestingly, that's
Hmm.
not our biggest deciding factor. Like,
Concern. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's definitely, it might be a harder sell if the price point is really way high, but at this point, like we're so focused on taste, and I think most of our consumers are too. They're willing to pay a little bit more if it's really getting them like good quality.
Do you read your consumers? Does your
Mm.
decision making often revolves around what are they looking for?
Yeah, definitely. We've been in business only 6 months. So at this point, we are all about just absorbing what our customers are saying and listening to them. And
Hmm.
some really interesting things. I mean, not shocking, but demand is very seasonal. So we're
Oh,
definitely
okay.
responding to that. Around the holidays, like red
Hmm.
wine, whiskey. Now we're moving into warmer weather. So it's
Correct.
rosé, like spritz season. So those things I think are pretty predictable, but it is also interesting to see as we've gotten a feel for our customer base, also by generation, sort of like age.
Right.
Obviously, Gen
Hmm.
Z is way more interested in functional drinks, drinks that are just kind of their own standalone thing, because a
Yeah.
lot of them haven't even acquired a taste for wine,
True.
beer.
Correct.
Like we've held a number of tasting events where we kind of pour from different categories. And it's funny when we have a younger audience, nobody even likes the beer. Whereas if we have
Oh,
like a late 30s, 40s audience, everybody loves the beer. Yeah, so I think as we're sort of getting the lay of the land of who our customers are too, that helps us figure out like which categories we really need to invest in. And as season shifts, like what can we phase out? What can we bring in? So our inventory is also sort of constantly,
moving and dynamic.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So that brings me to the point that a lot of brands in this particular category, they're entering this space thinking that Gen Zs are my target. What should brand know about appealing to, let's say, boomers or cross
Mhm.
generation buyers in this space and not just focus on Gen Zs?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like Gen Z already wants this, so that's kind of an easy get. I think it's more of an interesting challenge maybe to focus on
Mm,
boomers and on
right.
down. Our boomer customers are definitely the most skeptical. You know, we
Yeah.
we definitely
Yeah.
get some, is there even, isn't this
Yeah.
non-alcoholic wine just grape juice? And it's easy to have a knee-jerk reaction to that and be like, no. But it
Yeah.
is really, I think, coming from a place of like not knowing. So we try to meet
Correct.
everything, gracious explanations and let's help you find something you like. But yeah, I mean, I noticed there are definitely a lot of boomers who are coming to this space. Medical reasons, maybe, they're starting to
Yeah.
really think
Correct.
about their health, or maybe there's medication. They're seeing actually that their kids don't really drink. Their kids are
Yeah.
their grandkids, and that's
Yeah.
making them drink. And I've found that hosting, like being a good host, is so important. So wanting to have something that's like inclusive for all their guests, wanting to be sort of the consummate host also drives them here. So
Mm.
they can have inclusive products. I find like the older the customer, the more interested they are in an analog. So something that's just
Mm.
going to slot in like one to one for whatever it is that they typically drink. So if they like a glass of red wine with dinner, that's where we get our people being like, hey, is there even such a thing as a good non-alcoholic red wine? They have a whiskey or an old fashioned, looking for that. And then as we go down in age, there's sort of more open-mindedness to just trying anything, even if it doesn't fit into like a familiar category. We have a lot of spirits and functional drinks that are just their own thing. And so there is no frame of reference.
Correct.
But yeah, I think the older the consumer, I see the more like set in their ways. So it's interesting to try to like cater to those customers all the way down
Mm.
to our Gen Z folks.
Interesting. So I'm sure that you come with a lot of education, you come with the thorough knowledge of this category. Do you have to often impart that training to the people at your bottle shop?
Yeah, absolutely. Education is probably the most important thing we do. Like, I don't even
Correct.
see what I do as like sales. It really is just education and
Mm.
like helping people know more.
Correct.
So we have a lot of tactics to educate
Mm.
folks. We have most of the bottles that we sell, we have samples open behind the bar so that people can actually try. And then when people are trying to, it's not a matter of just like, here, drink this, but
Yeah.
like actually sharing a little bit about how it's made, or
Mm.
how to taste it. Like a lot of the de-alcoholized spirits are made to
Right.
be mixed because they lose the viscosity. They don't
Yes.
quite taste the same, but once you get it in the context of familiar ingredients in a drink, it really comes to life. So even, letting someone taste, letting them know that, add a little mixer
Mm.
so they can see the process. So it's a lot of like hand holding and
Correct.
imparting knowledge so that people can start to feel more confident, I think, because it's like,
Right, right. I think in this category, people would love to hear more. They would love to hear what you're there to sell and why they should buy it, what makes it different. They would definitely just want to hear more about the product that they are going to purchase.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting. Oftentimes people come in saying one thing, I want a non-alcoholic gin. But then as you talk to them and you dig a little bit deeper, you realize, oh, okay, they like to like drink something neat. So maybe
Mm.
gin isn't necessarily the thing, but what I
The
hear you
choice,
saying
right?
is you like juniper flavors and something very botanical. So there's actually this
Correct.
other product to try. Because, right, it's like you don't know what you don't know. So how
Correct.
would you even know what you're looking for?
Amazing. So I think you brought up a great point in the tasting, and I've read one of your interview on mini bottles as well. So
Mhm.
what can you talk more about, like how price accessibility and formats like mini can help new customer take their first step?
Like you alluded to, we find that there's so much demand for mini bottles. It's a nice step between
Correct.
free sample
Yes.
in the shop, a $40 bottle that sits on your bar and maybe collects dust and you don't use it. We've all been
True.
there. And we have seen more brands coming out with like half size bottles, which do move really well. It's interesting though. I don't think it's necessarily a matter of like cost on the
Mm.
side of the consumer. I mean, yes, but also we find that sample packs that have a variety of mini bottles, but the price point is actually
Mm.
higher than a full size bottle, those move really well too, which makes me think it's actually like there's just a lot of, new things are scary. So there's a little bit of fear involved
Little
with
bit
these
of
purchases.
skeptical. That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
skeptical or just like intimidation or just, it's the classic, I buy this thing, I'm really excited about it, then I don't wear it or
Or
use it or
yeah.
drink it. So I
maybe
think
maybe the indecisiveness is also there. People
yeah,
would really
totally.
do not want to rush themselves into buying something immediately in a huge stock, especially when
Yeah.
they're not sure how it's going to end up tasting. So it's so
Yeah,
good for them
totally.
to buy the sets of mini bottles, bring home, try and see which one they would like to repeat again, maybe in a
Yeah,
bigger bottle.
absolutely. It helps you see it in the context of your life and realize
Right.
that, okay, yeah, right, I can just swap this in the same way I'm already having an alcoholic drink. Minis are great. Samplers, I would say equally effective or
Even
maybe even
yeah.
more so. One of the brands that we work with, Ritual, which is one of the bigger brands in
Hmm.
the like non-alcoholic spirits, they have little 2-ounce mini bottles, like airplane size,
Hmm.
not for sale, but they do give them to retailers just to like give out to a customer who's maybe looking at a bottle and on the fence. Okay, if you're not ready to get that this time, here, like try this whiskey at home, see
Very
how you
nice.
like it. And that's a great way to convert people, win over the trust, I think, of like this new kind of scary thing. Oh yeah, I can actually
That's
like this.
correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
I think you're actually making consumer taste it. Just
Yeah.
try it once, which is the best. Do you give these feedbacks, Obriana, to brands as well? That those who are coming and launching their brands directly in a big bottles, do you often give them this feedback that it's really easy and good for them also to launch something in minis or something like a sampler or a tasting bottles?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another cool thing about this space is that it's relatively new. So most of the brands
Yeah.
we work with are relatively small, like smaller, receptive to feedback. So we definitely
Yeah.
do share that. And I know it is on the brand side, it is like lower margin. So not everybody
Mm.
can afford to really make a mini, but I think the value is especially there if you're launching a new product that
Right.
maybe takes a little bit of that education, has a little bit of a
Time.
learning curve for people to, see how it fits in.
What makes this particular category of no and low brands easy for any retailer to work with?
It's a great question. And this was a learning curve for me as I got into this
Mm,
space. Like, oh, wow, we
right.
can really ask the brands for things. But you realize that,
True.
yes, shops like mine are where focused, engaged customers go versus,
Correct.
maybe ones like wandering through the liquor store who maybe
That
see
is
some
correct. True.
NA stuff out
Yeah.
of the corner of their eye. And we really exist to like move brands' products through education. So I do think it is a
Wow.
worthwhile investment for brands to support. And
Correct.
I would say like providing free product for sampling is basically table stakes. It's such a
Mm,
norm in this industry for non-alcoholic bottle shops to have bottles open to sample to customers. We find that if we sample something, maybe 40% of the time it leads to a sale. Really, really is so effective. At the end of each quarter, I will just tell brands like how many of their bottles we sampled and
Hmm.
sort of have the expectation, hey, please send us some replacements so we're not taking from our inventory, because it really does lead to exponential sales of their product. I think whatever other things brands can do to support and get people in the door to
Here. Yeah.
shops, with or without budget, like that doesn't need to look like financial support at
Right.
all. It can
Right.
be hopping on a call with us to like educate us so we can tell the story of the product better. It can be highlighting our shop as a stockist on social media, something as simple as adding us to the store locator of a product. Like that's how a lot of our customers actually come
Nice.
in. And then also, we do a lot of events to build our community. And we're always looking for brands who want to partner on those events, whether it's
Hmm.
a cocktail class, because then people can really see the product in context and get to work with it.
Right.
It's just as good as buying a bottle, sample bottle, taking it home, seeing, oh yeah, I can use
Correct.
this. Or even, we have like a book club, donate some bottles to that. Yeah, it can look like a lot of things. And the fun thing about this industry is it's so new. There are no rules. We're just writing them together. So I think
True.
like the best way for brands to get their product on shelves, is just to build relationships with retailers and figure out like what supporting each other looks like.
We have seen a rise in the functional beverages as well, like kava, mushrooms. So,
Mhm.
how do you compare these to traditional non-alcoholic spirits or brand? Like,
Typically, either a customer comes in looking for an analog, a wine,
hmm,
a spirit, or they come in looking to feel something or ask, like, do you have those drinks with adaptogens or those drinks that make you feel
uh,
something? Often two very different types of customers. The folks who are interested in the functional drinks, they know that it exists, but still there's a lot of education to be done of like, how does this
yeah,
work?
I'm sure a lot of open-ended questions you must be getting instead of the close-ended. You get a lot of
Yes.
open-ended questions. Okay, you tell me like that. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We typically put functional drinks in their own merchandise section of the store so that if people are looking for that experience, we can send them there and then they can shop within their own category. And I think it's definitely interesting to introduce the customers who don't even know that's an option to those drinks.
right.
But it's interesting, I kind of like modulate the conversation about, if there's a product, say Curious Elixirs, they're really delicious cocktails. They also happen to have adaptogens and nootropics. Based on the customer, I might just really talk about the ingredients and the flavor profile and how it drinks. For someone else, I might talk about the fact that this has Shisandra and ashwagandha and it's going to make you feel this type of
Wow,
way.
nice. Amazing. So let me put one question to you, Brianna. So, for example, I'm a brand, I'm an international brand, and I'm looking for an specialty store like yours. How should I pitch myself? Like, what makes my pitch acceptable to you, and what makes my pitch fall short? And I have to figure
Yeah.
it out. Like, how should I be pitching to these bottle shops?
My first answer is always like, whatever your pitch says, if your product is great and we sample it and we love it, I mean, it kind of
Hmm.
pitches itself. I think the pitches I'm most likely to really take a beat on and like respond to is when the brand describes their audience and what need they're meeting with that customer, and also perhaps shows some familiarity with our
Nice.
brand and our customer and can talk about like
Hmm.
how, there's overlap between the two. Like help me start to
Correct.
understand how I can tell your story and sell your product. Also, we're at the point where there's so many Palomas, there's so many old fashions. Like unless yours is really doing something special, I think there are
Correct.
certain types of drinks that are really saturated. So I am definitely more inclined to take seriously pitches that are, doing something a little different.
Right. Right.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, if customers are asking for your product, we will bring it in.
Right.
So it also could be a matter of how this shop isn't really responding or like they're not interested, but I know people want this. So I'm going to say, hey, go,
Yeah.
ask for an approve for this. And that is always the most powerful thing.
Right. So what I'm hearing is one is read your market, know your audience. That's super important. Just don't launch your
Yeah.
brand. You should be fully aware to who you are going to pitch this brand to and what this brand is targeted to. Second is it's important to
Yeah.
know about your retailer, I'm sure. It's important to know that what sort of bottle shop do they have, what sort of selling they are doing, where there is a gap in their portfolio. Like you said, that it becomes so easy when you know that consumers are asking for this category or this product, and you have a supplier who's pitching the same product to you. It becomes easy for
Yeah.
you to make a decision when they read the retailer, the market, and the gap, which
Yes.
is I
Well
think
put.
very
See,
yes.
yes, exactly.
And it's very important for these brands to know that there has to be a uniqueness. You just can't call yourself as a no and low alcohol product without bringing that USP on the table to why anybody, including a retailer or a consumer, should pick you out
Yes,
of so
totally.
many options.
Totally. We're not at the point where people walk into a wine shop and they're just shopping for a cute label and they know they
Correct.
want a red. Like we are still, this category is so new, a customer is absolutely every day going to ask me, "Oh, what is this?" Or like, "Why should I get this
That
one
is
over this
correct.
one?"
Yes.
And I need like the one sentence response. And if the brand can
Hmm.
help me get
You
that,
get that. Yeah.
right. It's so much, in the way the customer gets a sample bottle and they can
Yeah.
imagine
Yeah.
how they can
That's
drink it.
true.
Like,
That's
that
correct.
helps me imagine how I can sell
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
an escalation elevator pitch. The brand tells you, you tell it to consumer, the consumer
Yeah.
drinks it, likes it, tell it to the community, and that's how you build your repeat sales. So I think
Exactly.
that's amazing. Anything that this category or brands are missing as an opportunity, where you see that this category
Mm.
has an immense opportunity, but nobody is touching it or they're missing it.
Probably 80% of our products are
Hmm.
seem slightly more geared perhaps towards like women, towards wellness, pastel colors, all
Mm.
wonderful, beautiful things. But that also means that there's a lot of space over here to appeal to men or just people
Right.
who have different interests. Like two products I see doing this really well are the Pathfinder and Namari, both of which are kind
Nice.
of like darker, a little more like
Hmm.
punk aesthetic. And I think there's just like if you want your product to stand out, I think even like liquid death water is a great example of this. That's not necessarily in the no and low space, but they saw all these, you know, nice, bright waters. And they were like, what if we made our packaging really like dark and sort of hardcore?
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of
That's nice.
opportunity for that because I know women are make up the majority of like the shoppers for this segment,
Hmm.
but it doesn't need to be that way. A lot of our customers are men also, and I think there's a lot of room just to think about like flavors and aesthetics that
Right.
go in a different direction.